You are listening to WNJC 1360, Philadelphia's Renaissance radio station. Next up, the Counseling Commander, with your host, Major Manners.
Fathers, mothers, sisters, brothers, leaders, followers, anyone and everyone. While enjoying a celebrated reputation for counseling over 50,000 people individually, I was commissioned by the Department of Entertainment to commandeer an initiative that will help reactivate the morale of society. So sit back, relax, put your thinking caps on, and scheme for pleasant dreams. Because Major Manners, the Counseling Commander, is on the air.
Hello. Not only to everyone within the sound of my voice in WNJC 1360 land, but also to everyone within the sound of my voice worldwide on the web. My name, Major Manners. My show, The Counseling Commander. My objective, to help reactivate the morale of society. Good afternoon on this bright Easter day. My producer has something different for us this week. Let's hear what she has to offer here.
Hey, Major. Okay, well, guys, today we're actually going to do a special Easter program where we take your questions from the viewers, and we answer them. So I thought it'd be a different thing to do, you know? So what I did at work was I left a jar in the middle of the lunchroom, because, you know, everybody wants to go in the lunchroom and not work. So there's a jar in the middle of the table in the lunchroom, and I said, anyone has a question for the host of my show, because he's great at answering questions. Major Manners, you're great at answering questions, aren't you?
I hope so.
Well, you're better than me. So you put a question in the jar, and then, you know, I'll pick it at random for the next show on Sunday, and maybe you'll get some questions. I thought, you know, maybe people would put on there.
Sounds good.
We ended up getting about 20 questions, Major.
Okay.
So I guess a lot of people want your help. Okay, so I'm just going to reach in this jar here and pick out a random question. All right, here we go. Here's the first one. My parents are going through a divorce, and they keep pitting me against each other. I love them both, so I cannot pick sides like they want me to. What do I do to avoid being stuck in the middle of their fighting?
Well, that's interesting, and it's something that always comes up in a divorce case. It seems like the children are always pulled between one. They feel like they're being pulled between one and the other anyway. But it's a very interesting bit of knowledge to get when you're going through something like that as an offspring. What you have to do is you have to start trying to figure out the dynamics of a divorce. The dynamics of a divorce is basically the same as the dynamics of a war, okay? There's no good side or bad side, just the other side, okay? That's the same in a war, that's the same in a divorce. There's no good side or bad side. It's just the other side. When the offspring can start to understand this, then it makes them a lot easier to be able to stay neutral. Okay. Another thing that is always good to learn through this, or if you find yourself trying to figure out, is what was it that made this divorce happen? What is it? What are the dynamics that go on that make a divorce? As an offspring, you don't realize what it is. Is it something I did? Is it something they did wrong? What are the dynamics? Okay, one of the basic dynamics that make for a separation like that is simply the fact that the two people really weren't ready to take on a responsibility like that in the first place, to take on the responsibility of marriage.
So it's nothing that the kid did?
Nothing at all. It's nothing at all. Actually, it's the time of the life that the parents took on that responsibility. People seem to gravitate toward people at the wrong times in their life, okay? We really, if we're smart, we won't gravitate towards anyone else until we are feeling like $1 million about ourselves, okay? Because it's an old saying, birds of a feather flock together. Mm-hmm. And by that, it means that how I feel, if I gravitate towards someone, I'm going to gravitate towards someone that feels like I feel. So if I'm feeling bad about myself, I'm going to gravitate towards someone that's feeling bad about themselves, okay? Sooner or later, there's going to be a demise in the relationship, because one of these times I'm going to be feeling better when they're feeling bad, or they're going to be feeling better when I'm feeling bad, okay? And sooner or later there's going to be a breakup, okay? The best time, so we find that when we find these divorces happening, it's because the two people, both of them, okay, gravitated towards someone else at a time when they really shouldn't have done it yet. Okay, they should have really made sure that their goals were accomplished, things that they wanted to do were accomplished in their life, much of it anyway, before they started looking for someone else. Because then they would have gravitated towards someone that was doing the exact same thing. And it would be nothing but inspiration coming back and forth, which makes for a great relationship.
So for a marriage to work, they need both people to be independent and mature in their own self before they start to
most definitely. That is exactly
become one.
The fact. That is exactly the fact, okay? And when you don't have that, of course, there's going to be a demise there. Okay, for an offspring to understand is to understand this so that when they become old enough to gravitate, they don't make the same mistake.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the important thing. Okay, it's like we can learn from our parents' mistakes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, so my friend's going through the same thing right now. Her parents are going through a divorce, but they were going to go through a divorce when she was about 10. Now she's about 18, and they weren't really talking about it before, but now they really are. So do you think it was a good thing for them to have thought about it and separated at her age of 10 and then got back together for the kids? Do you think that's a good idea? And then wait till the kids get older?
Oh, definitely.
If they're going to divorce at all?
Oh, definitely. I mean, the older that the offspring is, the better the offspring is going to be able to handle it. Okay, let's be for real. Okay, at 10 years old, it's going to be bad. It's bad enough at 18 years old.
Yeah.
At 10 years old, it's devastating. Okay, so of course, yes, of course it was very good of them to kind of wait until the offspring was much older. Definitely.
Yeah, I think she's taking it better now than she would have at that. She wouldn't be the person she is today if that happened then.
Right, she understands it a lot more.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, well, let me pick another question. This one was good. Okay. My father is getting older and has a lot of health problems, making it so that he cannot take care of himself anymore. He lives with me now, so that it's easier for me to watch over him. I do a lot for him each day, but he fights with me constantly about it and acts like he doesn't appreciate my help. Why is he being hateful towards me when I'm saving his life? How do I deal with living like this?
Okay, well, For one thing, I understand something without even hearing who it was that sent this. I understand one thing, that the person that is saying this is not the same gender as their father.
Oh, he's not?
I can understand just by them saying it like that is that they're not the same gender as their father.
How do you know that?
Simply because when two genders, when we're dealing with geriatrics, okay, what you want to always do is you don't want to mix the genders, because then what's happened is that you're not being able to empathize with the person. Okay, different genders can't empathize with each other.
Okay.
If it was a male, if it was a son or something doing this, that son would be able to understand more why that father is acting like he's acting.
Okay.
The same difference if it was a mother, okay, a daughter would be able to understand more why she was acting like she was acting. If it was the mother, okay, the son would be having just as hard time with his mother as the daughter is having with her father. Because when you get there, you really can't mismatch the genders. You really can't. You want to have your ideal thing is to have the same gender. My advice to her is that if she's got a brother, a nephew, a friend, a male, or, someone, an uncle, someone that can help with him, okay, she'll feel a lot less.
Well, why do you think he's acting that way?
Well, he's acting like that way because he's afraid. Okay, there's things going on now that he has no control over. Okay, and the fact that he's afraid. Okay, and when geriatrics get up there, they're all afraid. I mean, they're looking at mortality now.
Yeah.
Okay, things that they've never been able to do, that they've always been able to do, now they can't do. Okay, and they kind of resent the fact that they can't do them.
Yeah.
Okay, but to be able to not let that frustrate a caretaker, the caretaker has to be able to empathize with that person.
Yeah.
The caretaker has to be able to understand that why that person is feeling like that person is feeling.
Yeah, and not take offense at it.
And they can't empathize. No. They can't do that. You can't do that when you cross the genders.
Yeah.
You and I can't empathize with each other.
Yeah.
Okay. The best we can do with each other for crossing the genders is sympathize. Okay. We can't empathize, and sympathize doesn't help.
Okay. Oh, that's a weird way to take that. I wasn't expecting you to take that way. Okay, well, next question then. All right, here's a good one. My parents are mad at me for my poor grades and the fact that I may be losing my scholarship for college. Now it seems every time I turn around, they're yelling at me. When they aren't yelling, they're ignoring me. I hate being home now. They're making it so I don't even want to be at my own house. What do I do?
Well, I'm gonna talk a little bit about peer pressure here.
Okay.
And then you're gonna say peer pressure. What does peer pressure have to do with this?
I'm already thinking it, actually.
Major. What does peer pressure have anything to do with this? Okay, but we have to understand that peer pressure is not confined chronologically. Okay, it isn't your peer is someone because they're your peer because they're your age. Okay.
Okay.
Pressure is pressure. Okay.
So peer can be your parents too.
Peer can be your parents, can be anyone. It could be anyone that's pressuring you.
Okay.
Can be basically be considered your peer. Okay. Us parents, a lot of times we make the mistake of attempting to pressure our offspring into being what we want them to be, rather than being what they want to be. Okay, right off the top of my head, it seems to me that it's a foregone conclusion that whatever she's going to college with the scholarship for, whatever she's going to college for, I bet you a dime to a dollar, she doesn't want to do it. She really doesn't want to do that.
Oh, wow.
Okay, she's definitely intelligent because she's in a position for a scholarship position.
Yeah.
So that's not why she's not getting the bad marks.
Wow.
Okay, she's not getting the bad marks because she's looking ahead and she's really not looking forward to going to college for what she's going to college for, but does not have but is afraid of the peer pressure of her parents to be able to sit down like an adult and to explain to them that.
Yeah.
Explain that to them. She doesn't feel like she can do that. So what she's doing, she's kind of rebelling subconsciously in another way.
Oh, and she doesn't know it.
But, well, she knows it, but she doesn't know how to. She doesn't know how to sit up with them and explain it to them.
Okay.
They've done everything. Apparently they've done everything to help her in her life. And she feels like she can't really sit down and explain this to them. But she doesn't realize that her parents are the best friends she has. Okay.
Yeah.
She can explain it to them. She can sit down like an adult and explain that to them, and they will actually admire her a lot more for that than messing up her marks like this. Okay.
Well, if they're ignoring her, do you think that's a good way to parent? Just to ignore your child? Like, you know what I mean?
Well, I'm not necessarily saying it's a good way, but I'm gonna say going back to war, okay, going back to confrontation, okay, if you and I have a difference, a political difference, if we're thinking politically different about something, rather than set up and argue about it, okay, it's better for me to go this way and you to go that way. So basically, that's what the parent is doing. Okay, rather than arguing about it, the parent is just dissociating themselves. Okay, they're going the other way, so it won't be a war, so it won't be an argument over it.
Okay.
So I mean, when human relations, in fact, okay, it's a good thing that they're doing that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, there's nothing wrong with that at all. Rather than arguing, because arguing makes frustration. Frustration. We can't do anything with frustration.
No.
Nothing whatsoever.
That's true. Okay. Well. We have another question here. I'm actively looking for a job, but for some reason I'm not getting hired by anyone. How do I keep from being discouraged? I've had that problem before.
Well, actively looking for a job leads me to believe that there's a few things that can be done here. Okay, one thing is to double up my activity. Okay, if I'm looking for a job, if I'm going 1, 2, 3 times a week looking for a job, maybe it's time for me to go 6, 7, 8 times a week looking for the job.
Oh, wow.
Looking for a job. Okay, to double up my activity. Okay, we can always double up my activity.
Yeah.
Okay. Another thing is if maybe I can widen my parameters of what kind of job I'll accept. Okay. I'll bet you a dime to a dollar that this person's parameters can be widened a little bit to do some things that maybe they thought weren't the most comfortable things to do, but just to get a job, to get their foot in the door, maybe they want to widen the parameters to do that. Okay. But that's a couple of things that I would say. Okay. As for doing something that's uncomfortable, okay, if it's something that's totally uncomfortable, of course, then don't do it. Okay? Yeah. That means that there's something else better out there for you. Okay, so doing it is counterproductive.
Yeah, definitely. Take it as a good thing instead of a negative.
Definitely.
Okay. Well, next thing I have to do is find out who in my job wants to quit. Didn't think about that. Okay, next question. You gotta dig down in this jar here. Okay. These days, my daughter won't talk to me. She's very distant. I'm not sure what's going on. She could be depressed. How do I go about approaching her about it without pushing her away? And if she is depressed, what do I do? My daughter's a teenager, by the way, if that helps. Did that help?
Yeah, it helps.
Okay.
It helps. It does help. Okay, because now we're talking about a very, I'll call it, creatively tricky form of communication when we're dealing with our offspring that's a teenager. Notice I used the word offspring. Okay? This is the perfect time for a parent to start utilizing that word, to start changing that word from their child or their kid to their offspring. Okay, because thinking child or kid, we're going to tend to treat them like they were child and kid, and that in itself is going to make for a generation gap. Yeah. It's going to make for a separation. Okay, one of the biggest things as us parents that we have to learn how to grow into is grow into the fact that our offspring aren't children anymore. Yeah. Okay, and that when we speak to them, we want to listen to them like we're a teenager, but when we speak to them, we want to speak to them like they're an adult.
Okay.
That's the creative trickiness that I'm talking about. Okay, and it's very difficult, but here I'm making a point to say that us parents, this is where we have to grow up. Okay, because it's a totally different dynamic than it was when our offspring was a child. It's a totally different form of communication because now we're looking at that same person, but we got to start perceiving that person as a person of their own, as their own person. Okay,
is it hard to do that? I mean, I've never been a parent, so
no. Well, it's difficult. It's difficult, but a lot, I noticed that it's a lot harder for mothers to do than fathers. Yeah, but it's difficult. It's a difficult thing. You think about it. You're taking care of this person all their life from the time they're born. You're treating them. You're caring for them. You're nurturing them. You're taking care, and then all of a sudden, by right, you can't do that no more. If you keep doing that, what you're doing then,
they're going to resent it.
Not just resent it. What you're doing then is you're debilitating them. Okay, if you don't let them become an adult, okay, if you don't start treating them like an adult, if you keep treating them like a child, okay, they'll never be in a position where they know how to act like an adult. So technically speaking, you're debilitating them. Okay, so the same thing that we have to do for a child, okay, we must not do for an adult. The same exact thing. The same thing that we have to do for children, we cannot do for an adult. If we don't do it for a child, that's going to debilitate them. If we do it for an adult, it's going to debilitate them. Okay. So like I say, it's a very tricky creative process, creative part of maturity that a parent has to go through.
Okay. Well, because I learned throughout my travels that teenagers are much more moody than any other form of child or adult, anything. But I never understood why that was.
Well, a lot of that is because they're going into a totally different echelon of society, echelon of maturity. Okay, now they're going from being the head of their quote peers, okay, to the beginning of their quote peers. They're going from being an 18 at the head of the teenage, 19 to 20, the youngest of the adults. Okay, so they go from there, and it's
confusing.
Yeah, well, not just. I mean, it's just it's like an embryo, like something totally new to them.
Yeah.
Okay, and of course, it makes it so that they're going to kind of keep their mouth shut a little bit more. They're going to say, well, how am I going to say something when I'm sitting around here talking around someone that's 45 years old, who's been around the world a couple of times? What do I got to say? So I'm going to be a little bit moody. I'm going to keep my mouth shut.
Definitely. I'm keeping my mouth shut a little bit of you right now. I think we have time for a couple more questions, actually. We're making good time here. Okay, next question. I have a friend who was once a patient of yours. Oh, she must know I'm talking about. I was talking about you. You explained how psychiatric disorders are relevant for clinical use. What amazed him is that your explanation was so practical and so reasonable, so understandable, it was easy for him to build upon. He has been back to work for almost 10 years now and is doing great. I have been diagnosed as having schizophrenia. They tell me it has something to do with chemical composition, etc., etc., etc. None of which I understand. Can you explain? Can you explain that for me, too? Because I don't know what schizophrenia is.
Okay. For one thing, diagnoses are overrated. Okay. By that, I mean that too much emphasis is put on diagnosis. A diagnosis is nothing more than jargon that people, though that clinicians or practitioners in the psychiatric field understand. Okay, every walk of life have their own jargon. Okay, mechanics have their own jargon. There's certain words that mechanics will use that only mechanics know. Okay, there's certain words that entertainers will use that only entertainers know. Okay, well, in the psychiatric field, there's certain words that psychiatrists or people in that field will use that only people in that field know. Okay, and what they are the disorders. Okay. So when we hear a disorder, what we're hearing is one or two words that lets us know what kind of help that person needs. Okay. Without that person realizing that's what we're hearing. Okay. because psychology is a lot subtler than people think. Psychology is a very subtle science, okay? And most of the time when you're using psychology, if you're doing it correctly, the person don't even know what's happening, okay? So these code words come in handy, okay? When you hear schizophrenia, okay, schizophrenia means nothing more than a person is having a problem with their value system or their conscience. Okay.
Oh, the conscience, they feel guilty.
They're having a value, they're having a problem with their conscience. They're having a problem forgiving themselves for stuff. Okay. You know where it stems from?
What?
It stems from when they were a child, okay, they weren't made to feel comfortable with saying that they're sorry.
Okay.
They weren't made. I make it a fact with my offspring. I always made it a fact with my offspring. If they did something wrong, okay. Oh yes, I definitely reprimanded them, okay. But once they let me know that they understood and that they were sorry, I would drop it. As a matter of fact, I'll go to something totally different, something totally entertaining. You know, and my kids used to say, "Dad, how do you do that?" You know, how do you do that? I did that so that they would feel comfortable with saying they're sorry. It wouldn't bother them to say that they're sorry, because if we can say that we're sorry, we can move on. We can learn from it and move on. If we're not comfortable with that, okay, we're not comfortable with saying we're sorry, we can't move on. Okay. We're going to keep rehashing what we did wrong. That's what schizophrenia is. I mean, that's what that is. That's the person that can't move on from doing something that wasn't the right thing to do. Okay. As practitioners, okay, psychotherapy, what that does is, what you do with someone that's schizophrenic is that you come and you explain to them in different ways, okay, how that's a part of life, making a mistake. Okay? Making a mistake is a part of life. That's how we learn. We were not born. We were born knowing absolutely nothing. When we were born, we didn't even know how to breathe. The doctor had to slap us to teach us how to breathe. Everything that we've learned through making a mistake and redoing it.
Yeah.
Okay. So when we're doing psychotherapy with schizophrenia, that's what we have to do. We have to show them different ways how that's just a part of life. We can't let it. They say, "I'm sorry, won't do that again. Let's move on to the next thing." And by doing enough of that, sooner or later, the person will get the idea and they can build on it themselves.
Okay. That's interesting, because I've always wondered about psychiatric disorders and how psychiatrists kind of put a name on things that people had, and it scared me a little bit because I don't understand the terms, and like schizophrenia, it sounds so scary. It sounds like cancer almost, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just the word itself. And the other thing I didn't understand, hope you can clear this up for me, most psychiatrists, they'll be really quick to hand out a pill for something, like if you have schizophrenia, here's a pill for that. Do you believe, because since you're in a field of psychiatry, do you feel like pills are necessary?
The medication, and if you got to remember that psychiatry is very young. It's a young science. It's only about 250 years old. Okay. The medication it's only supposed to be given until a person can calm themselves down so that psychotherapy could be understood.
Okay.
Remember, a person's upset, a person's in a frenzy, well, they're not calm enough to be able to understand psychotherapy.
Okay.
So the medication is only supposed to be used so that the chemicals in their body will calm down, so that they're calm enough to be able to go through psychotherapy.
Okay. So, but you do believe in like pills, that kind of
it's
stuff?
It's definitely necessary when someone's in a frenzy to bring them in, or they won't understand.
They're not going to
what you're saying. Right?
Okay, I understand.
Definitely.
I think we have time for one more question. We're good? Okay. Here, dig all the way down this jar here. Okay, here's one. My husband and I aren't doing very well financially. I just lost my job, and my wife is currently working a second job to make up for the lack of income. Now with this financial strain, we fight constantly, and it seems as though divorce could be close in our future if things keep going the way they are. Please help us, with 3 exclamation points.
Here we go. This is going to be the dictionary, you got the Webster's Dictionary. We know what we can do with Webster's Dictionary with the word love. We can throw the word love right out of the dictionary. It has nothing to do with love. The word can be replaced with admire, okay?
Admire?
With
Okay.
admire. Here, it seems as though the wife has started to lose her admiration for her husband, okay?
Okay.
That's her husband's responsibility to get that admiration back, okay? It's our responsibility to act in a way. It's a person's responsibility. It's not your responsibility to admire me. It's my responsibility to act in a way that you will admire me.
Okay.
Okay, that's my responsibility. So the husband here, his responsibility is to act in a way that his wife will admire him. His wife is losing admiration for him.
Because he lost his job, because he's not.
I don't know. I mean, I can't. Probably because he hasn't gone out there finding 2 or 3 little jobs to make. I don't know. But his wife is losing admiration for him. Okay. And what he has to do is he has to gain her admiration back.
Oh, okay.
And quick as possible, by the way.
That makes sense. Would that lead to a divorce if?
It could, definitely, because if we don't, I'm married 31 years. Okay, it's my responsibility to make sure that my wife admires me more today than she did yesterday. Okay, if she don't admire me more than she did yesterday, sooner or later she's going to lose interest in me. She'll become frustrated with me.
Definitely.
That's human nature. Okay, so yes, it's his responsibility. She's losing admiration for him, and it's his responsibility to put himself in a position that she regains that admiration.
Okay.
Simple as that.
And that comes to my other question. If 2 people have been married for, say, 31 or more years, would there be any chance for a divorce if they were going to have one in the future? Do you think that could ever happen?
Like I said, if they're not making sure that they're admired more tomorrow than they were today, then it could happen.
And it doesn't matter how long they've been married?
It doesn't matter. A person has to admire you more today than they did yesterday. Has to admire you more tomorrow than they did today.
Oh, okay. Like, I love you more today than yesterday. That song, you got it.
Exactly.
Okay, well, I think we're almost out of time then, Major. I think it's time for your goodbyes. You going to say goodbye to everybody at WNJC land? I'm
saying goodbye to everyone and happy Easter to everyone. Everyone have a great Easter. And this was a fun day to be with you. I hope anyone that wants a transcript, you can have a transcript of these questions. Just all you have to do is how can they do that?
Message Major Manners on Facebook. You can find him on Facebook and Twitter. You just type in on your Facebook search people, and Major Manners will be right there. And if you're already friends with Major Manners, then he'll probably have a post up, I suppose. And we're working on a radio format group on Facebook for him.
Pleasant dreams, everyone.